It's been about a week, but we are so back here on the Hum, a Kansas Hoops podcast via the Field of 68. It is I, Sam Lance, joined by Jackson Bezdek, and we're going to keep it simple in this episode. We're going to discuss Kansas's 5-0 start, what we've learned, and much, much more coming right up next on the Hum, a Kansas Hoops podcast. All right, Bez. Kansas has played 3 games since we were last on, and they won all 3. In Atlanta, Kansas took on Michigan State in the Champions Classic, came away with a 77-69 win. Then the Jayhawks returned home for 2 games against mid-major programs. Kansas defeated Oakland 78-57 and UNCW 84-66, both very comfortable wins there. We're not going to go into these games in depth individually. I think that would kind of be silly, a little bit of a waste of our time. But instead, today, Jackson and I are going to go over Kansas's 5-0 start and exactly kind of what we've taken away from it. I'll just open it to you first, Bez. Kansas is 5-0, number 8 on KenPom with the number 10 defense, number 10 offense, number 13 defense. Kansas is number 5 on Torvik, still number 1 in the AP poll. What do you think we've learned so far? I'll open it up to you first, Bez.
I think the first thing that sticks out to me and probably to a lot of other people is that over the past couple games, we've kind of seen this rotation take a little shape. With Zeke Mayo getting inserted into the starting lineup in place of Diggy Coit. I think we kind of all knew something like that was coming. A lot of people thought it was going to be Zeke, and it is Zeke. So with DeJuan, Zeke, Rylan Griffin, KJ Hunt, that's probably going to be the starting 5 going forward, with AJ coming right off the bench, getting very close, or if not similar minutes to Zeke and to Rylan and probably to KJ too. And just kind of like to bounce off that, the bench looks pretty good. I mean, now you've got Shaquille and Diggy coming off the bench as your little guard tandem. AJ, who I just mentioned, is your scoring wing, kind of can do it all. And then Flory, fully healthy, is an awesome backup big man who would not be a backup big man for a lot of schools out there right now, I think. So I think you kind of look at that, and it's a lot easier now to kind of do a minutes distribution like you and I were trying to do before the season. It's kind of starting to form shape a little bit. And the closing 5, though, I think still is going to vary based off of, last night's a great example. Zeke doesn't shoot the ball incredibly well. And if that's a super tight game, maybe you don't go with Zeke down the stretch. But, the starting 5, the rotations in the first half, what we've seen the past couple of games is what we're going to see going forward.
Yeah, I think that starting lineup is definitely here to stay. That's kind of what I wanted to start with. That 5 of Harris, Mayo, Griffin, Adams, Dickinson. If you look on Evan Maya, who has a lot of great tools, evanmaya.com, with 25 plus possessions, that 5-man lineup is KU's best, and it's KU's best by quite a bit. So I think that is Kansas's probably best lineup whenever you're talking down the stretch even. I think that's going to be Kansas's best lineup, but really to me you hit it right on the head. It's the bench. I mean, it's perfect, Bez. It
Hmm.
is just absolutely perfect what you're bringing off the bench. You got a guy in store who can play the 4, he can play the 3 in place of Rylan Griffin, and he's going to be kind of that scoring punch off the bench. Flory, even though he suffered an injury yesterday, I believe it's the ankle, and Bill Self said he hopes to return to practice by Friday. He'll be day to day. Flory's the perfect backup big. Now you got Shaq and Diggy both kind of playing that backup guard position. Both bring different things. One brings more defense, one more offense. And then Rakis is still the
Yeah.
sneakiest 10th man
Hmm.
in the country, and he brought Kansas a really big burst of energy last night against
Hmm.
UNCW. So, I mean, there's just so much to like about this rotation, and we're now starting to really, really see it shape out. Just what do you like about it, Bez? Do you like the way it has shaped out? Do you think Store should go into the starting lineup, or do you think it is good as is?
It's hard to believe that AJ Storr isn't starting in college basketball right now. I mean, he was so freaking good for Wisconsin. I mean, really put that team on his back in a lot of games. And now he's coming off the bench. But, I mean, I haven't seen any issues with him with it. He doesn't seem to be bummed out by it. He clearly still knows he's going to get to that 25, 30 minute a game mark. It's just going to come a little differently than it has for him in the past. But like he is a sixth starter. I mean, Flory, like I said earlier, he would start for so many teams, but you're backing up Hunter Dickinson right now, so that's what you're doing. Like there's seven starters on this team, and I love how the bench has taken form in like its own little lineup. Like that's its own little starting lineup, and already seeing it with Flory, but injuries are going to happen, and if you can have like a pretty set, off the bench lineup that makes it really easy to plug in, say, if a starter goes down at some point. It's a lot easier to just plug in one of your, okay, we got a wing go down. We got two wings right here on the bench. Let's just put them in. Like, that's super nice to have as a coach. It's very stress free when it comes to the whole injuries thing. And Flory going down is like, you know, KJ might get some run at the five now, and if he's not ready to go against Duke. So, but that's something that he's done before and he's been good at before. It's something Self is comfortable with. So just Self has a lot of options, yes, but they're all like very comfortable, and he seems to be quite okay with a lot of different lineups putting them out there.
I think my favorite pairing so far early in the season has been Store with Flory, and that lineup of kind of Dewan, kind of going quote unquote smaller. You have a more athletic big man in Flory there. I've really liked that lineup, and I think you hit on the head again. It's the whole options thing that Bill Self said. I believe it was during media day. Like Kansas just has options. And one thing that one of my buddies mentioned is Bill Self, after a down year, Bez has become probably the
I
scariest
got
coach in college basketball. In
for
a
sure.
quote unquote down year, because
Right.
last year's Kansas season is a good year for many schools, but I mean, Bill Self even said it himself. Yeah, he doubled down. He doubled down on this roster. He doubled down on this team, and Kansas has options. I mean, we're 5 games into the season, and Kansas is averaging 34 bench points per game. Per game, Bez.
Mhm.
I think we could count up all of conference play, and Kansas. I'm not even
34.
joking. I haven't done it, but I think you could maybe take all of conference plays bench scoring from last year, and Kansas might have the edge this early in the season. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Last year, Kansas was in the 300s in Division One
Everything for the
schools
bench.
and bench points. Right now, Kansas is number 46, a top 50 team in the country in bench points. There's just no drop off, Bez. There's no drop off.
No, you got seven starters. Like you expect your bench to be really, really good when you can pick three guys off the bench and say, they could start for a lot of programs right now. So I think the shape of the rotation is getting set. I think the minutes still could vary a little bit, especially based on matchup. Like KJ is maybe not going to play a ton in a lot of these Big 12 games where he doesn't have a great matchup, but I think he's our best guy to put against Cooper Flag. So you're going to see a ton of KJ on Tuesday because that's a great matchup for him. So things like that will shift a little bit, but yeah, I mean, I think Bill's ready to rock and roll.
Yeah, I wanted to move on now to Zeke Mayo. I think this is my second biggest takeaway of the season. Just, asking my buddies and just people around the program, what have they taken away so far preparing for this episode? Everybody said Zeke Mayo. Like every single person, just no explanation either. It's just, what's your takeaway? Zeke Mayo. I mean, this kid, Bez, he's the truth, and he's becoming a fan favorite really fast. He's only averaging 12.6 points. I thought, that would be a little higher, but he's got 5.2 rebounds and 3.2 assists per game. That's second on Kansas in all three categories across the board. How good has this guy been, Bez? Just how good has he been?
I think like the playmaking part of it, and like I think he's always kind of been a willing passer, but his rebounding too. I mean, he's crashing the glass hard. So Kansas expects him to come in, hit shots, hit a couple step backs, make some nice moves, be able to score in a variety of ways. But he's brought them a lot more than that. So I think that's why he's jumping off the page to everybody as like, whoa, we've seen the scoring, but we're also getting a ton of really, really nice stuff off the ball playmaking, even on the defensive end, he's been active in passing lanes, getting his hands on a lot of balls. Like, I think that's what jumps off the page most to me. And I still don't think he's at his peak scoring right now. He's not shooting the ball as efficiently as I think
Okay.
he will end up shooting. And I think the points are going to go up. Couple mid-major games where it's not really a game aside from maybe a close scare in the first half. You're not going to expect, you don't need Zeke to go get 20, 25. There's going to be Big 12 games where Kansas is like, Zeke, you need 20 this game. Like, we need you to go get 20. So I think that scoring number is going to go up. The assist numbers might even go up, Sam. And the 5 rebounds a game from your two guard, I mean, it's pretty not like that really kind of negates the KJ Adams lack of rebounding that we've seen so far. It's nice to have a guy like Zeke getting in there.
Yeah, we knew going into the season that Hunter Dickinson was going to be the guy offensively. He was going to
Right.
be the go-to guy, and my kind of thought with that was Kansas would be playing a lot of just inside out, throw it in there, kick it out, and it would be, not stale and stagnant necessarily, but it'll be pretty simple. I think Zeke Mayo has just added a whole nother element that we didn't necessarily expect. Like he's not just a scorer. He's a combo guard.
Right.
Like he can bring the ball up, he can make plays, and Kansas is running all sorts of stuff through him right now. And I
Mhm.
think it's going to continue. I mean, they're running elevator screens for him to get open looks from three. We've talked about the play at the end of the North Carolina game where you think everything's going through Zeke. They're running all sorts of action for him, just for him to dump it over the top to Hunter Dickinson. So I think the biggest thing with Zeke is, we had the scorer, the go-to guy, Hunter Dickinson as a big man. Now Kansas has the guard to go with
Mhm.
it. And that is really important in March. And having a go-to big guy and a go-to guard offensively, it's pretty scary. It's pretty scary.
Yeah, and I think you make a good point. A lot of people expecting just kind of similar to last year. You dump it down to Hunter, let him go to work. That's kind of going to be the offense. Be ready to catch and shoot on a kick out. And that's Zeke would be great at that. Don't get me wrong, but his handle and his ability to get himself open is A, something Kansas hasn't had in a few years, and B, not something you just go shove in the corner. And already this early in the season, Bill has found a way to get him actions coming off of screens, like you said, but also getting good mismatches to where he can create.
Yeah.
And they've already figured that out while still getting Hunter a bunch of touches. Because yes, that is still super important to Kansas's offense. But you said it, man. Like that's two guys you can go to if things aren't clicking, your sets aren't running very well. Now I got one guy low, one guy high to be able to make something happen without needing to draw anything up.
And I think Mayo has mostly helped DeWan. I mean, to be
That's a
completely
great
honest. I
point.
mean, DeWan has somebody next to him now that can make plays that he can,
Mhm.
pass the ball and he can be the guy that goes stands in the corner.
Right.
Like that
He's
wasn't a thing last year. DeWan, it's actually incredible to think about. Last year, DeWan Harris like literally made every pass for Kansas. He brought up the ball every time, and the offense was on DeWan Harris. It's just not the case this year. And DeWan has been a lot better defensively. I think we could agree. And he hasn't looked dog tired out there. And I think
right.
Zeke Mayo has been a big reliever of that for DeWan Harris with his playmaking.
Yeah, and it also gives DeWan more opportunities to score, because he's not so gassed from getting the ball up and getting Kansas into their offense that, just like you said, Zeke can do a little bit of that. Now DeWan has the energy to play great defense and he's able to go get his own, like we saw last night, led the team in scoring. Like it's something you would have seen last year, but in a way different circumstance of how the game was going. This was all flow of the DeJuan Harris scoring 17 points in the flow of the Kansas offense is a very new concept for us.
Yeah, that wasn't happening last season. If DeJuan Harris was scoring that many points last season, A, something was wrong, and B, he's the only person who could put the ball in the hole
Right.
for Kansas. So yeah, I think that kind of what we're talking about leads into our next point, and it's just how dangerous Kansas is in transition this season. Because it's not just DeJuan bringing up the ball; it's Zeke, it's Rylan, it's KJ. And then whenever you go to the bench, it's Diggy, Shaquille, and Store. Like all of these guys and previous places have had the ball in their hands a lot. They know what it's like to be that guy. And now Kansas is just able to run straight on down the court, just run on down the court. And how many times have we seen a Dickinson rebound, outlet pass, layup for Kansas this season? It's been like 4 to 5 times a game, I feel.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, your nine guys that are going to get the bulk of your minutes, seven of them can grab it and go off of a board, and you're good with it. Like, not even good with it, but confident in it. I think that's something like AJ Storr is a good playmaker. I think Rylan Griffin at times is, especially with this roster, is becoming a willing playmaker. So those are types of guys you want bringing up the ball on a transition, right? Like a DeJuan Harris. Like he's a great decision maker. You feel like he's always going to make the right pass. Well, there's seven of those guys now. Like seriously, seven of those guys. KJ was kind of sculpted into it last season, and then the other transfers were the guy on their last team. So that's all they were doing last year. So now you get Zeke is able to go, Dewan's able to go. AJ's never, you know how many lobs AJ's caught? He's probably in heaven, dude. He's like, this is great. I
And
just fly down
Flory,
here
I
and the
think
ball's right at the
Flory
rim.
Flory has been incredible in getting down the
Yeah.
floor. He's so fast compared to other bigs.
He's
He
a
just gets
great
down
rim
there.
runner. He's a great rim runner, and it's something that Hunter doesn't do. That like that's why Flory's awesome. That's why we love him because that's not something Hunter really brings, but it's so like valuable for Kansas's transition offense just for 4 or 5 minutes. Give them a different look of what we're doing, and I don't know. Bill Self is so great in the half court that you just want to, yeah, let's run half court offense. But dude, I'm not sure many teams, even like we'll see too on Tuesday. Like that'll be a good test of this because they're very athletic. But dude, people can't keep up with Kansas in transition. They just can't.
Yeah, even North Carolina. I'm trying to pull up the exact fast break point statistics there, but even North Carolina, it seems like Kansas was taking it
That
right
game was fast.
in
Right.
transition. So, I mean, that's a team that's whole thing is running.
Hmm.
And Kansas was able to kind of handle that and get out and run themselves. So that to me is probably the biggest strength of this team. In all honesty, is just the ability to run. And we saw last night versus UNCW that it was probably a major component of the game plan because Kansas just sprinted down the court
Right.
time and time again. So it's been good. It's been good. We want to move on now to just kind of Kansas's overall offense and taking care of the ball. This is another huge piece of Kansas's success early on. Kansas is number 7 in the country in assist to turnover ratio, 2.15. They're top 20 in assists per game at 19.8. Number 24 in fewest turnovers per game, top 100 in turnover margin. This team just doesn't turn the ball over, Bez. And whenever you have a team that is as good offensively as this team is, that doesn't turn the ball over, I mean, it's efficient. It's efficient stuff.
Yeah, and it's you know, Dewan had some silly turnovers last year that you'd never expect him to make. KJ had the ball a lot. That's going to lead to some turnovers you're not going to see normally. El Marco wasn't ready yet. This team is so much different in a lot of ways, but in that specific sense is going to be the reason that this team ends up being so much better than the team last season. Because we've already mentioned it, the load on Dewan is way less. He's not going to turn the ball over as much. Zeke Mayo is a very high IQ player. Also, we just discussed. He's not going to turn the ball over a whole lot. KJ is not put in a super heavy load playmaking situation this year like he was last year for many reasons. So he's not going to have as many dumb turnovers as he had last year. So all of your main ball handlers, Rylan Griffin, kind of more of a catch and shoot guy. AJ Storr might have one or two dumb ones a game. You can live with those. I mean, I don't know where I learned this. I think it was from Bill Self. Way back when, 10 turnovers, that's the number, right? If you get above 10, that's not great. If you keep it below 10, you're probably going to win that game. You're probably going to win that game. And you get into Big 12 play, and that stuff starts to matter because a lot of those games you could see both teams, 12 turnovers, 11 turnovers in the first half. This game's so physical. if you're able to withstand that and keep it under 10 for really, really important conference play games, this team is going to be a one seed and going to lose 5 or 6 times max. Like that's what we're facing right now.
Yeah, I think it just comes with having an older group. Honestly, I mean, everybody on this team is old. You have a great point guard. The point guards that you're bringing off the bench are both fifth-year players.
Right.
Zeke Mayo's a fourth-year guy, and the people who have the ball in their hands have played a lot of basketball. I had the ball in their hands a lot, so I think part of what we're seeing it just kind of comes with having an older group. But it's still a great sign to see. I mean, whenever you're top 25 and pretty much every turnover
Right.
category there is. That's
It's
pretty
not
good.
bad.
That's pretty good. Just overall, I don't know how you feel, Bez, but I just think that this team's identity will be centered around the offense. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. So if you look at the national championship team, on Kim Palm at the end of the year, Kansas is number six
Right.
offensive efficiency and number 17
Hmm.
defensively. Right now, this Kansas team isn't as good offensively, but is better defensively. I think that'll change probably. I think we'll start to get more marginalized into, Kansas being a top, eight offensive team and more of like your top 20 to 15 defensive team. And that's good. I mean, that's great. I think offense, as much as defense wins championships, I think in this new era, offense uh, plays a big part in it too.
No, you got to be able to put the ball in the hole at a high rate. You just have to. Even Kansas's '08 championship team was better offensively than it was defensively. So that's just two Kansas ones I know. I mean, you look at UConn last year, nobody could guard them. That's just kind of how it is now. Like more offensive oriented teams are going to be better in March. It just is. I think Kansas needs to even lean into that a little bit more. Like I said it last episode, just be really good offensively. Just be a juggernaut and then get stops when you need to. Because like you said with the turnover stuff, the IQ and experience of this team is super high and super next level, I think, to where just go get a bunch of buckets. You guys know as a five in the game, when you do your little huddles, hey, we need to stop right now. Let's go get it. They're going to be able to go get that stop. A lot of lineups you put out there are going to be able to get that stop. I just really think with the how good they are in transition, and if they're not going to turn the ball over, dude, like this team probably should be in the 80s. Like
Yeah.
a lot of games, Like I don't see a reason why not.
And if you're in the 80s, I think Kansas, with a lot of the Big 12 teams this year, if you're playing in the 80s, I think Kansas will be able to hold a lot of these teams to
I
under.
agree.
So
Totally.
there you go. That's a recipe to win the Big 12 right
That's
there.
what I'm saying. That's good stuff.
I want to move on to defensively, Bez, how you kind of think things are looking. I mean, so far this season, I mean, I think the defense has looked okay. It's not like it's jumped off the page or anything. I think Hunter has improved in his ball screen defense. He's kind of really starting to grasp the concepts. I don't know if you watched yesterday, but that first play for UNCW, he kind of had that hard hedge and was able to create the turnover. I think he's continued to improve in that area, but where do you just think Kansas is defensively right now?
Yeah, I think the team defense is going to be what gets better over the next few months. Like, there's a lot of really solid individual defenders, right? Like, KJ Adams is a great defender. DeJuan Harris is a great defender. AJ Storr can really, really guard. Shaq Moore can really, really guard. So there's a lot of guys who are good, solid defenders. But there's like you said, nothing's jumping off the page. There's like something missing a little bit. As man, I feel like how do they get that shot off there? And you look at the guys in the game right now. You're like, how do you guys let that happen against UNCW? That was a lot of like my first half takeaways from last night. Was like, really? Like you're how did we let that happen? I think that is what gets a little bit better with Hunter. You just gotta give or take.
He's
Like
just slow.
celebrate
Like he's not going to
celebrate
get
the
fast.
turnovers you get like last night, but you gotta don't expect him to be great at that. He's not going to be, and that's just who he is. Kansas is going to give up layups on ball screens, on pick and rolls. They are. And limiting those is going to be the difference in being an average defensive team and being Kansas can't really guard anybody team.
Yeah, I think that's why having Flory is also really beneficial because he, the way he plays is more conducive to the way that Kansas plays. If you don't know how Kansas wants to guard, it's the hard hedge from the big man to kind of take away the ball handler. The guard recovers, and then the big man is able to get back to the big, and then off the ball, Kansas switches all of its actions. So if KJ and Rylan Griffin are involved in a screen, they'll just switch. And I think with that, both KJ and Rylan have proved that they can guard smaller guards. So
Hmm.
I think that's kind of been one of the things that I've liked is that whenever Candace is switching all those actions, they have somebody who's capable of guarding a guard 1 through 4. Uh, but yeah, it just lies on Hunter Dickinson. I think in terms of the ceiling of this defense, if he keeps improving in the ball screen area, if he keeps really getting those hedges, uh, this could be a really good defensive team. I think could be a good team.
If Kansas hits three pointers at an above average clip and they play slightly above average defense, they are going to be in the Final Four. That is like the crazy ceiling of this team, like you're talking about, to where above average defense, just pretty good, just get enough stops, is good enough to your offense is so good and so potentially good if you just hit open shots that your championship is your ceiling this year. 100%. If you're just a little above average, that's all Bill Self is going to be asking for. Now, he's going to expect and demand be the best defensive team in the country because he's Bill Self, but realistically, he knows, he sees it too. He's like, man, even if we're like pretty good, not great, that's going to be good enough.
Yeah, my only concern with the defense early on has just kind of been the foul issues. Kansas hasn't been great at playing defense without fouling, especially Flory. It feels like when Flory's in there, he picks up 2 fouls like instantly, almost every game. And if you look back to the UNC game, that's what flipped it. UNC was able to just attack, draw fouls. So I think cleaning that up, and then Hunter Dickinson just continuing to improve in his ball screen defense, things will look okay defensively for Kansas. And again, the identity of this team isn't going to be defensively. Like the 2020
Right,
team,
right.
that was a defensive juggernaut.
It was.
That was maybe one of the most Bill Self teams of all time.
Mhm.
This team's not like that. It's just not. So that's really all we have from our takeaways for Kansas 5-0 start so far. There's just one last thing to talk about, Bez, and it's Bill Self. He's the winningest coach in KU history now. He now has 800 wins all time. Only active coaches that have more are John Calipari and Rick Barnes. And the only coaches with 800, along with those three, are Coach K, Roy Williams, and Jim Boeheim. I mean, Bill Self is truly an elite company now. I mean, you could look to Fanta's tweet of the 2 national titles, 4 Final Fours, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, as well. This is a question that I have. Hunter Dickinson, after the Michigan State game, said that Bill Self is KU's greatest coach of all time. Do you agree, Bez?
I don't know, but you just listed a lot of guys who Bill Self beats in March multiple times. That list you got there. So if I think he's the greatest coach of all time in general, then yeah, I guess he would have to be KU's greatest coach. I mean, seriously, like the guys you name, like Bill beats him, beats Rick Barnes in the Big 12 championship, beats Coach K in Elite Eight games. Like he goes up, beats Roy in Final Four games. I mean, he goes up against these guys and beats them when it matters. I think he's the straight up GOAT. But I love that he respects Fog Allen as much as he does. And anybody older than like 30 is probably going to be like, well, Fog Allen, like have a little respect, youngins. But like, I think he's just the straight up GOAT. I think the second ring in 22 made him the literal all time GOAT for me because of the 14 straight, dude. I mean, that will never be replicated ever again in a power conference. It never, ever will. The fact that because that pulls in everything. That's coaching, that's recruiting, that's adjustments, that's handling player relations, that's everything to be that good for that long in a row. I think he's the GOAT, man.
If he gets number 3 this year, then I think we can move towards that conversation. I'm not going to
Man,
say
I'm 100% biased too. Like I nobody should take what I just said seriously.
there's just so many guys. I mean, you got John Wooden, Coach K, Rupp, Roy, Bobby Knight. I think if he gets a third, then you put him into that conversation of, okay, the top six, five, six guys of all time. But right now, I still don't think it's quite there yet. I think he needs a third. I think he needs a third
He
title,
probably does.
to be
For
honest.
like the national conversation, yeah, he needs to be in that air, like that air with those names. I'm just kind of joking around because Bill does beat them. But yeah, he probably needs a third because those guys have a good handful. And dude, I don't know, man. Like if I'm starting a program, you give me any coach ever, I'll take John Wooden and then Bill Self. There
All
you
right.
go.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm cool with that.
I
I'm cool with that, Bez. I'm cool with that.
love that you're cool with it.
Well, all right, y'all. We will be back at the under four timeout. We're going to talk Kansas's three-man signing class, and Bill Self said some more interesting stuff toward recruiting. So we're going to kind of talk next season, only 5 games into this season. Gotta love it. Let's do it,
Sweet.
y'all. See you at the under four.
If you haven't heard by now, we have partnered with BetMGM Sportsbook. We're going to be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for the listeners and the viewers of the Field of 68 throughout the year. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, you can use bonus code FIELD, and you will get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. The best part, all you need to do is deposit and bet $10 of your own hard-earned money to be eligible. Here's how you make it work. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using that bonus code FIELD. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you will receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure that you use that bonus code FIELD when you sign up. BetMGM is going to have some fun offers available throughout the NBA playoffs. Bet insurance tokens, odds boost, and what I love, a nice parlay booster too from time to time, as well as a ridiculous array of player prop bets for any sport that you could possibly imagine betting on. BetMGM is and always will be the king of the prop bet. So go download the BetMGM app, use the bonus code FIELD, and sign up today. And while I've got you, a quick request. The best way to support the Field of 68 content that you get for free is to engage with us. Rate and review the podcast. Like and share the YouTube videos. Tell your friends about us. It all helps in a world where the algorithm is king. And now, back to the show.
Welcome back, everybody, to The Hum, a Kansas Hoops podcast via the Field of 68. It is now time to talk KU's recruiting class. Kansas signed 3 players, Darren Peterson, Bryson Tiller, and Samus Calderon. And now the class sits at number 3 in the country via 24/7 Sports. I mean, Darren Peterson, he's a number 3 prospect in the nation. Bill Self said that Bryson Tiller, who has an ankle injury, if he didn't get hurt, he'll probably be a top 10 guy, but he's fallen to like 20, I believe. And then Samus Calderon, 4-star out of Overtime Elite, as well as Tiller. It's a good class where it stands right now. What are just your thoughts on the class, Bez?
Yeah, I'm glad we have one. It's nice to have, 3 guys locked into the roster next year in today's world. 3 awesome gets, I think. 3 different players, 3 different positions. I guess Tiller and Sammy could technically play the same positions at times, but it's 3 different players, and they all bring something fresh and new to the table. DP is just an absolute
Did you
monster.
see
I
what
mean,
he did last night,
yeah,
Bez?
dude. What, 33-8 last night?
Against
Like,
Columbus, which is the best team
right,
in
get
the
the
country.
really good school. Like that's what he's gonna do. Bryson Tiller is like a scoring forward with post moves and a mid-range game and is also really athletic. Sammy's Calderon is gonna be a great energy bench guy, kind of like Rakis this year. I think that's what he brings to the table. But dude, like DP is gonna start from day one. Bryson Tiller is going to be in that conversation from day one to be in the starting lineup. Like that's 2 really, really big gets going looking to next year.
Yeah, and with that, Bill Self had some pretty interesting comments in regards to recruiting. He said He doesn't know if Kansas will sign another high school kid. He said, quote, four is probably too many. We got the ones we needed to get early. With that, I think Kansas is probably done in the 2025 recruiting class, unless they grab Muhammad Silla. I'm not really sure where things stand there, but I believe it's going to be the three guys that Kansas has locked in now. That will be the three guys Kansas brings in next year. And that brings us to the question, Bez. What will Kansas look like next year? Way too early to be talking about this 5 weeks in, but let's go ahead and do it. You're looking at who's going to be gone, and you got a lot of guys who are guaranteed to be gone. You got DeJuan, KJ, Hunter Dickinson, Zeke Mayo, Diggy Coit, Shaquille Moore. That's a lot of Kansas's production this year. AJ Storr, right now, he does technically have another year of eligibility. He's projected in that second round of the NBA draft. I think AJ Storr goes. I don't think he stays. So then you start talking about who's going to be back. Will Flory be back? I'm leaning towards yes, kind of have him be the guy at the five next year. Rylan Griffin, feel like he could probably come back for his senior season as well. So you're looking at those two, and then Rakese, Elmarco Jackson, Jamari McDowell, and Zach Clements. The roster right now doesn't look great. I mean, let's just be honest. It doesn't. Your point guard, Kansas doesn't really have one. It's kind of Darren Peterson, but you probably want Darren Peterson to probably be in the Zeke Mayo role of
Right.
this past
Right.
year, kind of being that combo guard. So I'm thinking it's going to be a portal point guard, Darren Peterson, Griffin, Rakese, and Flory. And then you got Elmarco, Jamari, Bryson Tiller, Samus Calderon, and Zach Clements off the bench. I mean, let's just be honest.
Don't love that.
That's not going to do it. Kansas is going to have to go portal to fill quite a few spots on the roster next season. What do you just think, Bess, of what things are shaping up to be like next year?
Yeah, I know you look ahead too early. You usually don't love what you're looking at. It's not a constructed team like at all. There is a world where I think Flory is a top 15 pick, Sam. I think that world exists, bro. I've seen a little buzz. It's not gonna happen. You're not gonna see it in the mocks yet. But if he is good this year, dude, he's gone. He's gone. I think he has a better chance of leaving than AJ Storr does. But I agree with you. I think if I pick right now, AJ's gone. So essentially, I'm thinking worst case scenario if Flory does leave, you maybe have Ryland back. I think you do. Rakese will be great. Marco fully healthy. Jamari hopefully a little better. And then your three freshmen, man. But like it's going to be another portal offseason for Bill Self, and he's going to need to hammer it again. And you know what? That's just the circle you're going to live in now in today's college basketball. Because then you look ahead 2 years from now. Well, now Ryland's gone for sure, and now Rakese is probably gone. If Flory's not gone already, he's for sure gone. Same with AJ. It's like it's just the same roundabout circle that you're just going to be in every single freaking year. And free agency, that's what it is.
Yeah, it kind of is an end of an era for guys like
Yep.
DeJuan Harris,
Yeah.
KJ. I don't know how much we'll see that moving forward for Kansas. I think the formula, kind of in this modern day, is having 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, key returners, and then getting 1 to 2 elite high school guys that can, right away produce, and then the rest go portal. I mean, that's just the way it's
That's
done now.
what UConn's doing, man. Like we're seeing that not just Kansas doing it. Like UConn, that's been their formula the past 2 years, and it's obviously been quite successful. So you're right.
Yep. Well, there you have it, y'all. We looked ahead way too early to next season. We talked about what we've seen from Kansas this year. I hope you guys enjoyed. Up next for Kansas is Duke on November 26th, next Tuesday. It's Duke. And then if you look at Kansas' schedule, I mean, we're in it now, Bez.
Oh
There
yeah,
are
it's time
really
to play.
there are no easy games from here on out besides maybe
No more
Brown.
Oaklands. No
I
more
mean,
Oaklands.
yeah, no more of that. You got Duke, Furman at Allen Fieldhouse on the 30th. That's going to be a
Good
game.
team. Good
Furman,
team.
good team. You go at Creighton, you go at Missouri, you got NC State in town, and then you got Brown in town before Big 12 play starts. It's
So
getting
everything up until Brown's a ride. That's what you're saying.
not necessarily.
Those are some good games though.
It's just getting real. It's getting real. The season is underway. Kansas has already played two great teams. They played Duke, and then you got Creighton. We're really going to see where Kansas is in the next couple of months before conference play. Thank you guys for joining us. That's all we got today.